So welcome. My name is Skip Newberry. I'm president of the Technology Association of Oregon. I've done some work with some startups in the tech sector back in the day, as well as used to work in the mayor's office for a brief stint in Portland as well. Also want to introduce our co-presenters here today. We have Jared Wiener, who's with the Portland Development Commission. He's in charge of the software industry and helping to provide public sector support to the tech community in the Portland area. And then we have Eric Sorenson, a recent transplant from Cuppertino and Apple up to PuppetLabs as of August, is that right?
End of June.
End of June. Yeah. So you'll be hearing three different perspectives on Portland and the tech scene from each of us. Each of us is in fact a transplant as well. I'm originally from the Northeast. I've been living in Portland about 7 years. Jared was from the Southeast, and he moved there last year.
About 10 months ago.
10 months ago. So I'm going to start off and give a little bit of a high-level introduction, an overview of some maybe lesser-known facts that you might not have been aware of in Portland. And what I wanted to do was start by talking a little bit about some general themes and interesting sort of companies and people that help to make the Portland tech scene unique. Most people have heard about all of the amenities that the greater Portland area has. You know, you have proximity to the beach, you have proximity to the high desert, the mountains. There's the food scene between the restaurants and the food carts. There's the bike culture that a lot of people love. And the lesser known story is that of what's happened in the tech community over the last, I'd say, 5 years or so. And it's a little bit of a quiet renaissance of sorts, switching from what used to be known as the Silicon Forest, with a lot of hardware and silicon manufacturing, semiconductor industry, to also having a layer of really interesting software companies in there as well. So everyone's probably aware of Portlandia, the TV show now, with Fred and Carrie. And they've been incredible ambassadors for the quirkiness that does make Portland unique. And we also have a couple of other folks that people in the tech community might know pretty well as celebrities who make Portland home. And you have Linus Torvalds, the creator of Linux, who lives in the Portland area, as well as Ward Cunningham, who created the wiki, invented the wiki. And in fact, I was at an event last night in Portland where Ward was presenting. It was a Tech Ignite style event. And he was talking about a federated wiki that he had designed while serving as a fellow this past year at Nike, which is doing some interesting, innovative stuff with open data right now. And he was talking a little bit about my presentation tomorrow, and of course, as Ward is fond of doing, he offered some advice. And he said, if I were asked personally what is the difference between the Portland area and the tech scene there versus, say, Silicon Valley, he would say that one thing he's seen is that if you have a network here, it's fantastic. You can hit the ground running. It's a great place to get plugged in. He said, in contrast, his view of Portland was such that, if you don't have a network, but you're looking to kind of get established quickly in a place and ramp up, it's relatively easy to do so. And he said, even better if you have a really kind of outside of the box, innovative idea, and you need some interesting people to further develop it by bouncing ideas off of. And that hallmark of collaboration is something that I know in my short time in Portland I've seen quite a bit, not only at the individual level, but also companies that are increasingly collaborating with one another. So Techlandia is an interesting project that we got involved in this past year. It was a collaborative project with a couple of different organizations in town, including the Portland Development Commission. And it's essentially a database. It's located at techlandia.org. And it profiles roughly 300 different technology companies throughout the state of Oregon. It also provides a bunch of trends and data on what's going on in the community in terms of employment trends, interesting subsectors to keep an eye on, essentially to provide some context so when people are interested in learning more about what's going on in the tech scene, they can go to the website. Now, the notion of Techlandia is a little bit more than a website. I think to me what really resonated with me was the fact that we have over 90+ software user groups in the greater Portland area. And it's a very kind of quirky, very tightly knit culture and scene. It's very easy once you arrive, if you're there for a few days even, to check out a wide cross-section of different people who are passionate about specific little niche areas in tech. And I've found that the user group community is a great way for companies as well to connect some of their employees to the broader community. I'd like to think they also do so through our association, the Technology Association of Oregon. Another thing that I'll mention is that with some of the companies that we do have in the greater Portland area, we have what I describe as kind of anchors. You know, some of those larger, more well-recognized companies that have a significant presence. The one everyone tends to think about in Portland is Intel. It's their largest facility in the world. They have over 17,000 employees, 3,500 just in software and services alone. And a big portion of their mobile development, which is really driving a lot of their development as a company, is taking place there. So with Intel as one of the bigger players, there's a number of other companies like Jive that experienced most of its development and growth in the Portland area. They moved a headquarter location down here after getting investment from Sequoia and just before going IPO this past year. And then you also have companies like eBay and PayPal, which have acquired companies in the Portland area that have now become central to their mobile development strategies. And they now have, I think eBay's office has 150 or so people in downtown Portland, and they're growing rapidly. That's just in the last couple of years. And you also have companies like Walmart Labs that are, again, acquiring smaller companies. They become a big driver of change within the local market. And then the thing that's most interesting from my standpoint, in terms of the work I was doing when I was in the mayor's office working in economic development, was looking at what has become a really nice little section of the community, which is the startups, and in particular in tech. And PuppetLabs, for those of you who don't know, is a Portland-based company. Luke, the founder, actually relocated with just a couple of people. I think it was just himself and his co-founder from Tennessee, and then they grew the company dramatically over the last several years. And there's a number of other companies like Urban Airship and Elemental Technologies that are a little bit more well-recognized in a variety of communities around the country. One of the more high-profile companies to relocate to Portland was Simple, formerly Bank Simple. They consolidated some offices out of New York and San Francisco, and Alex Payne, one of the early employees at Twitter, who created the Twitter API, was the first technical co-founder there. So there's some interesting developments across a number of sectors. I emphasized mobile earlier. There's also some great stuff going on when it comes to cloud, collaboration software, embedded, as well as some interesting stuff as it relates to engineering and construction software, given the green building industry in the greater Portland area. There's also quite a few of more venerable venture capital firms that have been investing in Portland as they've seen deal flow pick up. A lot of the companies represented here are examples of those companies that are venture-backed. Before I kick it off to Jared, I just want to mention that the public-private sort of relationship that exists in Portland, projects like open data initiatives like Civic Apps for Greater Portland, as well as programs like the Seed Fund, which Jared will talk a little bit about more later, have helped to create a nice supportive ecosystem, especially for startup companies and entrepreneurs in the greater Portland area. So with that, Jared?
Yeah. Thanks, Skip. And as Skip said, I'm Jared Wiener. I'm with the Portland Development Commission, and I'm a recent transplant into Portland. Moved there about 10 months ago from Raleigh, North Carolina. And the reason why is because my master's degree is in urban planning, and I was so tired of hearing everyone talk about this mid-sized utopia of a city. And so I had to go there and see it for myself, and it really is a cool place. And so what I'm going to focus on is that, yes, we have all these urban amenities that you can get in a lot of larger cities, but we also have that small town feel as well. And so, what's changing in Portland? How's it growing? Why is it a good place to be? Young college-educated people are moving to Portland. Over the past 10 years, Portland's only rivaled by Seattle in the amount of young college-educated people that are moving there. And that's happened even as the national economy has gotten worse. So while things got worse, young college-educated people, they actually accelerated their transition into Portland. So we think that bodes really well for the city because you have all these talented people in this place. And from the tech perspective, currently it's about 52,000 people working in technology industries in the city. And the data shows that it's expected to increase by 15,000 more people over the next 10 years. So it's a growing sector that's already somewhat substantial in our economy as well. So that's sort of where we are as a city from a tech sphere. And what we're trying to do is help grow that as much as we can, both helping companies that are currently there and then also helping people create some of the new companies. And so why should you move to Portland? The startup scene there is really top notch. There's numerous different incubators and accelerators around the city that can help these companies grow and succeed. Just a couple of them. There's the Portland Incubator Experiment, which is run out of Wieden+Kennedy, which is the largest branding and marketing agency in the world. And so they're, not only is it housed there, but they're also actually helping support it as well. And so you have PI, Portland Incubator Experiment. The reason it's called Portland Incubator Experiment is because the founder of Wieden+Kennedy, who's supporting it, really likes pie. So they had to come up with an acronym that fit. So you have Wieden+Kennedy there that's supporting it. There's corporate sponsors like Coke and Target that are there to help as well. There's other ones around the city too. There's the Portland State Business Accelerator. 40% of venture capital funds in all of Oregon went to companies that are located in the accelerator last year. So you know, they're getting the funds for those companies, and venture capital funds, I should mention, are actually increasing in the Oregon economy as well. So and it's not just the dollar amount, it's a number of companies that are getting them as well. So you're seeing venture capital funds increasing, and then there's a final accelerator I wanted to touch on, and this is the Portland Seed Fund. And this really speaks to what Skip was saying about public-private partnerships. The idea was something that came up with that folks at PDC, where I work, helped originate. And so we're an investor in it. There's also other public sector entities that are investors in it as well. But then in addition, it's about half of it is financed by the private sector as well. So it's a good sort of collaboration between the public and private. We help support those companies as well with some of our different programs once they come out of the accelerator, but it's really sort of run as a private sector initiative with some public funding in there as well. So you know, you have those three. There's other ones across the city as well that can help people start a business, but it doesn't just stop there either. We don't stop just with helping people start their business. There's other initiatives beyond just that. You know, once they get to a certain size, we want to help them grow. And one of those is a pilot program that's being staffed by myself and some other folks at Portland Development Commission, and is being championed by one of our leading investors in town, also someone that took his company public with a valuation in the 9 figures. And so we have this really great champion. You know, PDC supporting it. Some of our other partners are helping as well. Technology Association of Oregon, Skip sits on the executive committee for this initiative, which is called Portland 100. So what we're trying to do with that is we're trying to scale some of our most promising companies, and we're doing that by identifying the early stage companies, and then some companies that are a little further along, like the PuppetLabs, who's an ambassador company to this program. And so we're trying to get these early stage companies to a valuation of $100 million or more in 3 years. So identify some of the more successful ones and then help them grow and try to reach this ambitious goal that's been set. And that's through mentoring, it's through identifying capital both in Portland and outside of Portland that could potentially be there, that they could potentially utilize, and then also identifying executive level talent that can assist these companies reach that next milestone in their growth. And so, if that's not enough for why you should move to Portland, there's plenty of other reasons as well. So there is this great tech culture that exists there, but you also have Mount Hood, which has skiing year-round, and that's only 90 minutes away. You have the beach, which is even shorter distance away, and that's the bottom picture. You have the Columbia Gorge here, which is about 25 minutes outside the city. And so you have all these amenities that are really close to Portland. And if that's not enough, you guys have probably heard about the beer scene there in Portland. There's more beer festivals than there are months in the year. It has the most number of breweries of any city in the world, not just the US. And then you also have a good wine country as well. There's over 360 wineries in Oregon, most of them within an hour's drive of Portland. So you have beer, you have wine, you have a craft coffee culture that's developing there as well, and with Stumptown and some other coffee companies as well. So you have all these amenities that you can get in a large city, but you also have the small town feel that really sort of speaks to what Portland is. It's also been named the greenest city in the US, and it's also the most friendly US city to bicycling as well. There's over 300 miles of bike trails and facilities in Portland. And so there's all these great things that Portland has to offer. It has this tech scene, and then it also has these amenities. And so you can get many of these in other places, but I don't think you can get both of them to the degree that you can in Portland anywhere else. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Eric, who's going to tell you why he moved to Portland just a few months ago.
Hi. So yeah, I guess I'm kind of the poster child or poster boy for this movement, because all this stuff that these guys are talking about are pretty much right in my wheelhouse. So I lived here in the Bay Area for over 15 years. I lived down in the South Bay in Campbell. That's where most of the jobs were that I worked at. Most recently, before I moved away and went to go work for PuppetLabs, I worked at Apple. This is my odometer on my commuter bike in 2008. And there's no decimal point there. There's actually 12,000 miles that I rode on that bike. And I did a lot of like organizing and volunteer work here in the Valley, or down in the Silicon Valley, for Bike to Work Day activities, and that was really awesome. It was one of the things that I liked the most. I helped run the Energizer station on Bike to Work Day that we had at the Apple campus, which was a great experience. But it was like one day a year, and on that day it was completely amazing, because I'd be biking into work and there'd be like a flotilla of other cyclists going alongside of me. And every other day it was like me and 10,000 cars. And that was kind of annoying. It got a little bit old after a while. And one of the things when I moved to Portland was it looks like this. Like every day you go in over the bridge and there's a string of other folks just, riding bikes into work. Obviously, if you live up here in the city, you can get some of this, and riding down on the times when I've spent a week up here for work or whatnot in the past, coming down Market Street is like this, except that the cars don't stay where they're supposed to stay. They're sort of actively trying to kill you. But yeah, there's a fairly large amount of commuter cycling and non-car transportation stuff going on. But for various reasons, life in San Francisco itself was not something that was really in the cards for me. For one thing, the jobs were all down south. This is my house in Campbell is about 5 miles away from the proposed mothership Apple campus, which is this picture of. And the other jobs that I had, I think the furthest north I had to go was Palo Alto, which is about 20 miles away from my house. And that was kind of the ideal setup from a bike commuting standpoint. So it was a really nice distance, and could take the train home if my legs were too tired. But for the most part, the jobs were all centered down in the South Bay, and for the folks that I know who did reverse commutes, who lived in San Francisco and came down the peninsula to work down the valley. Like, it's kind of a crappy commute. You can do it. So places like Google and Apple and Facebook have this, a whole fleet of private coaches to make up for the crappiness of the public transit here. And so it's totally doable, but that's 2 hours a day on a bus or in a car or on the train, which I'd rather spend running my dogs around. They're another reason why life in San Francisco was not that appealing to me. You need a yard. The one on the right, he's 12 now, so he's slowing down a little bit, but she is crazy. This girl, she's like 2 years old, and we'll go out and run 6 or 7 miles, and she's like, okay, that was nice, what next? And that's just not going to work in a San Francisco style apartment. So one of the great things about Portland is that it has this kind of mix of urbanism where things are close in, there's transit, there's amenities like these guys were talking about, but there's also like a preservation of green space. There's a place called Forest Park, which is right outside of downtown. It's about a 10-minute walk from the PuppetLabs office, and after starting out on the trailhead, you're in the middle of a redwood forest, and you wouldn't know that there are other people around. So that's pretty awesome. Another important thing for me, as far as finding a sustainable place to live, is for my family. Jen is super into crafts and sewing. She's taking a sewing class now that's just up the street from our house. Like, she literally walks out the door, walks up the street, and hangs out and does like this evening. They have like free sew, like they have it at the pool with free swim. Except you hang out, bring a bottle of wine and your sewing machine, and sew. Apparently, that's what she says they do. I haven't been there to verify, but and she's also into 80s like new wave dance nights, of which there are like 6 a week in Portland. So she's pretty happy about that. This is Gunnar. He's 7 now, and this is a picture of him at OMSI, at the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry, which, if you've been to the Exploratorium here in SF, it's kind of like the Exploratorium, except they have a friggin' submarine outside, which is pretty awesome. And it was really important that that us grown-ups be able to have grown-up style amenities, but not at the expense of my kid having a good school and a good place to go. And the neighborhood school that we're in Portland is amazing. We live just on the east side of the river, and there's, his school is more or less like an urban, it's right off of one of the busier streets called Division Street. But it is, a great school. It's like a 9 on great schools, and when we're looking at places to move to, we had some pretty high criteria for what the neighborhood schools ought to be like. We're not really willing to spend the money for private school when it seems like we pay taxes, and there should be able to, get a decent public school for that. And Portland does a great job of that. Here in San Francisco, I have some friends who have kids about Gunnar's age, and there's, I don't know if you guys know this, but they have a lottery system up here where you have to sort of put your name in a hat for the schools that you want to get to, and you more or less have no control over which of those you'll end up at. So that wasn't really a viable option for me. I didn't want to go through that amount of stress and put my family through that kind of stress. So Portland's really been great on that regards as well. Professionally, there's some amazing stuff. Obviously, the Silicon Valley tech scene is, it is what it is. It's one of the most highly concentrated pools of talent and community in the world. Portland has some awesome stuff going for it, though. And the interesting thing about the startups and the community as far as the tech industry goes in Portland is there is kind of this mentality that kind of meshes a little more of a ethical approach to what we're doing than just a pure get in, make the money, get the capital, get an exit, go to the Bahamas kind of feel like you get a lot of the startups here in San Francisco. These are some of the things that I've personally been involved in. There's a ton of stuff, ton of meetups, lots of things going on. I think the second week that after I started at Puppet, OSCON was going on, O'Reilly's Open Source Convention, which brought 10,000 people from all around the world to the convention center just to talk about open source. There's a local Portland convention that's a little bit smaller and a little more focused just on regional stuff called OS Bridge that goes on. And how many of you have downloaded stuff from OSU Open Source Lab, right? They have like the fastest internet pipe on the planet. They mirror all kinds of all the big projects, and they're big Puppet users, so they're good friends of ours. We hire some of their folks, and they're just great. We have a great back and forth with them. And we host the PDX DevOps meetups at the PuppetLabs office, which has been a great way to get to know people in the community. One of the things that I found compared to the tech scene here, and just people in general, are super friendly. Like the first month or so that I lived in Portland, I kept looking at everybody who was talking with kind of out the side of my eye, because it seemed like they were trying to trick me into thinking that they were nice so that they could get something from me. But that's my Bay Area roots talking, right? They're actually like, they wanted to get to know me and wanted to talk. So that's been a really great great experience. PDX DevOps is a great group. We have meetups about once every month or once every 2 months, and just people will have kind of an open space format where we'll talk about cool stuff that people are working on. We do a quick Ignite talks where somebody will do 5 minutes, and then you're cut off, so you gotta blast through your slides. And yeah, so all of that's been kind of great professionally. Like I said, there's kind of this ethical standard for the startups up there, and the way I kind of think of the scene is sort of like a granola cyberpunk thing going on there. So, like, I don't know if that appeals to you. It appealed to me. It might be a good place for you to go. I'm happy to talk to anybody about the logistics of where to live, or what the specific about what to do, and also about the any of the specific technical cultural stuff. If you want to talk about that, that's it for me.
Yeah, so I mean, we've got a little bit of time, I think, right? Yeah, so questions.
Yeah. What's the weather like? How severe in the summer versus winter?
So I've only been there in the summer. It's friggin' great.
so this is kind of how it works, right? My first time there, I was visiting my girlfriend at the time, and it was in February. It was 70 degrees and sunny. And I was coming from the Northeast, where we were like digging out of like snow yet again, and I was like, "This place is awesome!" And so everyone was saying, "Yeah, of course, it's like this all the time." And so I took the plunge and moved there, and yeah, it rained 30 straight days when I moved there in November. It's what I found was that it rains more back east, and it also rains more in Seattle, and the rain is kind of like a mist for most of the winter. So it's mild. It's like
especially if you're
high
used to
40s,
San Francisco
50s.
fog, it's probably not that big a difference.
Exactly. You can still do stuff outside.
I moved last year, the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, and like these guys said, the winters, it is a little bit of dark and dreariness, but it's not as bad as you would think. And here's why. I have a dog like Eric, and the last thing you want to do if you're a dog owner is take your dog out and have to walk them at 10 o'clock at night when it's raining and 30 degrees. But most of the time in the winter, it doesn't actually get that cold. And what I notice is at nights there, it's kind of humid in the wintertime and not humid in the summer. It's this weird sort of setup that I still don't understand today. But it sort of felt like a spring evening. Like it was kind of cool, but it was this sort of neat feeling in the wintertime. And then in the summer, it's perfect, 80, 85 degrees, it doesn't rain, and it's light till 9:30 at the peak of the season.
Chris?
I have a question for the first speaker. So, with any of these kind of, movements of, a lot of tech scene, a lot of development, et cetera, the city, the mayor's office, et cetera, the planning commissions, this kind of thing, aware of the various things going on. If you look at some of the negatives that developed during the tech boom in Silicon Valley, are they taking any of that into account? Are they specifically metering growth or aware of the various things that can happen of too much accelerated growth?
Yeah, so I think that in terms of growth in general, whether you're talking about urban development or whether you're talking about specific sectors, it's been a relatively careful and thoughtful approach that the city planners have taken. I mean, as long back as the 70s. I mean, the benefits we're receiving now are a result of planning and decisions were made in the 70s. And so there's this little bit of a feeling of you have a public trust. And so even if someone's a little bit wacky when they get into office, they pretty much get acclimated to the fact that, hey, you've got certain obligations. People expect certain things here with regard to sort of measured growth from an urban development standpoint. I would say with the some of the growth that's gone on in individual industries in the 80s and 90s, semiconductors were going gangbusters, and then now you have software kind of exploding onto the scene, and so I think that people are looking at that saying, let's try and make this happen in a way that's sustainable, and by that I mean the talent issue is the biggest one, apart from capital. So they're working really closely with the university systems, for example, the public schools to get more STEM education, science, technology, engineering, and math. And they're looking more longer term already and how do they kind of fill that pipeline. So I would say in terms of the talent issue, that's one big one that they've been focused on. Are there other specific?
Well, I mean, a lot of people, especially people who were working during the late 90s here, remember just the housing market just being incredibly bad as far as like actually being able to find a place. Rent was through the roof.
Right.
Maybe you could share some of your experiences like finding a rental place in Portland. Yeah. Have you found any kind of difficulty, or if you think it's going to be more difficult for housing and rental there as a result of population growth?
I don't do we still have time here, or are we over? Okay, so yeah, so I found the rental market to actually be I was here in the .com boom, and pets.com may live in infamy forever for having. So there's a little bit, I think, of so a lot of people there are transplants from other places, so it's not like newbie go home kind of thing.
Yeah.
But definitely. Certainly for when you're buying houses, the housing, if you bought a house here and you look up there, it's like, holy crap, this is cheap, let's go. And there's a little bit of that. The rental market is tight, stuff moves very quickly, but it didn't really feel like people were trying to gouge you, and there's lots of availability, new stuff comes up as quickly as the I don't know the technical term, the inventory or whatever. As quick as the inventory gets filled up, there's new stuff coming up. So we didn't find, like I've actually lived in 2 rental places since we moved, because the first place it turned out to be in a neighborhood where we didn't actually want to live. And after a week, we're like, yeah, this is really working out so good. Maybe we should go someplace else. And within a weekend of concentrated looking, we found like the ideal place for us. So that was pretty cool.
Yep.
What's camping like up there?
It's awesome. Yeah, it's great. So you can camp, like compared to the Northeast where you have certain seasons where you can kind of manage it. When I got to Portland, it was awesome being able to camp most of the year and not involve a lot of gear when you're doing it.
How far from like the mountains? How long would you drive?
So you can get to the summit of Mount Hood or close to the summit in about an hour. And there's tons of camping around that mountain. You can get to Bend in the high desert in about 3 hours driving, 45-minute flight, and you have Mount Bachelor and 6 other mountains that are around there. Bend is a lot like Boulder, 300 plus days of sunshine a year. So there's amenities like that. Plus you can get to the coast in an hour.
Yeah, I camped in the coast. It's amazing. It took about an hour to get there, and there's hiking trails, and it's not overpopulated or anything, and it's really simple, really easy, great facilities.
Yep, I think that's it. Quick?
Yeah, what's public transportation like?
That's awesome. It's like sane. It's the most. So I'm obviously a big transportation advocate. It's the most sane. The only other U.S. city that I can really compare it to is Boston. We've been on the T system there. It's really pretty similar to the MAX. There's a lot when there are interlocking like rail bus systems, they'll actually meet in the same place instead of having to. Yeah. If you try to make the Millbrae BART Caltrain connection, you know how like shit can be broken, and their stuff actually makes a fair amount of sense. It's really good.
So I think we have to wrap up, but we're going to be around the rest of the day, so if anyone wants to talk to us.
I'm hiring in Portland.
All right. Subtly, but yeah.